I woke up about 45 minutes ago, went for a run, and before I get going on my Second Coming of Christ for Christians videos, I wanted to talk about Mormons once again. Like in the other video, I know the Utah Mormons. I know their thinking. I know why they act the way they do. It's because of alt-right conservatism that has crept into Utah society because of Brigham Young. But once it emerged in the 1900s, Mormons embraced it readily. Okay, so why am I doing another video on the Mormons? It's because not only are we in the several states of the United States under attack. Trump declared himself a nationalist, and so now alt-right Nazis, white supremacists, they're all attacking people, beating people up. People are being sent bombs. And so we are under attack. The votes are trying to be suppressed so that Republicans can maintain control of their government that they'd obtained. We are under attack. If you go to my website, you will see that I've petitioned the Supreme Court, which is unorthodox, and I mentioned that in the letter, but I pleaded with them to consider my case. They're not likely to hear my case, especially since if they're in on it too, they're not going to do it. So, but Utah has been doing this kind of poor expletive deleted type of behavior for decades now. If you've listened to some of my blogs, gone to my website, and read my books, you know what happened to me. Alt-right conservative, which has infiltrated the Mormon church. You know, people who are appalled that Joseph Smith was a polygamist, that Brigham Young was a racist, you guys don't know the half of it. But at least you left the church. It wasn't Joseph Smith, first of all. It was Brigham Young. He established it once he became president of the church in the kingdom of Deseret, where he was made king by the Council of 50, having been made the president of the church, the theocratic king of Deseret. And so, yeah, he gave the talk in conference that one year where he said, we're now doing polygamy. And so this time, I'm naming names, people. Those of you in Utah who have abused me, I'm naming names. The state of Utah will not allow me to redress grievances because they're alt-right conservative. They don't want people to redress grievances. They don't want protesters. They arrest them as terrorists and mentally ill. Guess what they did to me when I protested because I wasn't being allowed to redress grievances? Exactly. I know you. I know alt-right conservatism. So when Bush caused 9/11, put forth the Patriot Act, I knew exactly those symptoms. I knew exactly the mentality behind it. Back then they called it neoconservative. That's alt-right conservative. Grandpa Bush, if you're not familiar with your Bush history, he financed Auschwitz, financed it. His bank financed Auschwitz, where Germans were gassed. And so grandson Bush followed in Grandpa's footsteps. and caused 9/11. And you can't find the evidence anymore. You had to have it before it all happened, because the government has erased it. The companies have erased it. And they have a Bush brother that you may not be aware of. You know of Jeb Bush from Florida, who rigged the election to go through the courts in Florida so that his brother could win the presidency in the first place, which was my first clue that something was up. But there was another Bush, and he ran security for the trade towers. Yeah, you won't find that anymore. Now the records say that he and his company quit, coincidentally, a year before 9/11. And if you go to the World Trade Towers website, it lists him as security until a year before. But they never, on either side, list who they were security with or who had security with over the trade towers during 9/11. Records have been deleted. They're fixing it to cover up what they did. President Bush murdered over 3,000 U.S. citizens, and I'm fearing that he murdered Peter Paulino, who I knew from New York when I was out there. So yes, it's personal to me. And so when the Patriot Act came along, I was pissed. A rigged election, a 9/11 family problem, and then the Patriot Act, and then war in the Middle East, where now, I don't know if anybody's watching the video I did last night on the opiate trade that the U.S. took over from Afghanistan. That's why we went to Afghanistan, was to control the drug trade and punish American citizens, further killing more citizens here in the United States. We are under attack, people. You know, I show the charts, but Mormons have been doing this long before the government, the federal government. Utah has been alt-right for much longer. Moroni and the Swastika, the book. Let me show you the cover. Moroni and the Swastika. So there it is. You can buy it from Amazon. David Conley Nelson is the author. He documents the church's response to Nazi Germany, what the church did in Nazi Germany. There were those Mormons in Nazi Germany who tried to help Jews, tried to help them escape, tried to hide them. But the church denounced them. And that's what you're seeing under Trump. The church is not speaking out against Trump. They're not speaking out against the locking of babies in cages separated from their parents. Remember the family proclamation, Mormons? Oh, the family proclamation is that, you know, you have to provide for your families, otherwise you get punished. Oh, is that how it's to be interpreted, huh? Through an alt-right conservative mind? Have you ever thought that maybe the government's responsible for allowing businesses to pay you less on your paycheck? as they make billions and are able to take trips around the world and go golfing, sitting in nice luxurious offices while you slave for them, living paycheck by paycheck. Wake up, guys. So yeah, I don't like what they did to me. And that's how they do things, is through an alt-right conservative mindset. We have seen it with Trump. He hates women. He hates blacks. He hates anybody who's not white. He hates the poor. He hates gays and lesbians. That's the alt-right conservative mindset. That's the Utah Mormon mindset. You don't believe me? Okay, let's talk rape kits. Oops, gotcha. If you don't know the story from the local news here in Utah, last year they finally were forced to process the rape kits. Thousands of rape kits. They're still behind. But the statute of limitations has conveniently run out. Not a single one of those thousands of women here in Utah will ever see justice. That's the Utah conservative alt-right mindset. Mormon. Jeff Flake is Mormon. He's the one that put on the show because a woman cornered him in the elevator and said, "Shame on you." And he pretended on live TV that he cared. And then in the end, voted for Kavanaugh, a sexual predator. Hatch. I complained to Orrin Hatch, my Utah senator. I finally got a response from him. It was a form letter. Let me show you. I printed it up. There it is, Orrin. You can't cover things up by giving exclusive material to your constituents. I'm exposing people. Orrin Hatch, Mormon. He says, shall I quote it? Because heaven forbid if I were to summarize it and people claim fake news. Okay, the second to last page before he gives me the fluff thing. You know, he wants me to go visit him on Facebook. I don't do Facebook. Facebook is compromised by the Russians. Twitter. I don't do Twitter because they're hypocritical. They allow a president to violate their terms and policies. Alright, anyway. He says, Judge Kavanaugh's credentials and legal expertise are above reproach. Apparently not, since he's had so many complaints against him. He is an impartial judge. No. He said he's going to seek revenge on the Democrats in his hearing, who will honor the separation of powers. Oh, sounds like he was talking about his loyalty to Trump. And uphold the Constitution. Oh, shall we go over each and every single right in the Constitution and whether he has judged about upholding it? Let's talk about the girl who had been raped and was seeking to get an abortion, but Judge Kavanaugh tried to postpone it so that she would be forced to have an abortion. He was overturned by the appellate court, and he got upset. Uphold the Constitution? Seriously, Hatch? Get this. This is key. I have known Judge Kavanaugh for many years, and believe him to be a good man and a good judge. Wow. Screw evidence. He believes. He knows the guy personally. And with Hatch's comment of saying that Dr. Ford was, what was that word? Pleasing. Anybody know Utah Mormon lingo? You know, Mormons are paranoid about sex. They think sex is a 4-letter word. 4. Sorry, Marty, I have to expose you. They believe it's a 4-letter word. Literally 4 letters. S-E-X. And Hatch revealed that he too is a sexual predator by calling Dr. Ford pleasing. So yeah, it's Judgment Day. And Utah will probably try to have me arrested and silenced because of this. Because I can't protest. I can't petition for a redress of grievances. I must be denied rights. That's the alt-right conservative mindset. They do not care about rights. It's security of the government, of those in power. That's what they talk about. That's why they do bombs. That's why they have shootings. It's to scare the public into demanding the repeal of guns, taking away our rights to guns, to put more police, more National Guard, and if possible the military on our soil, doing curfews, making sure everybody is checked for IDs, investigated by ICE, Homeland Security. Thanks to Bush, people get placed on the no-fly list. I never went to trial. I was never found guilty. And yet I'm on the no-fly list. I'm a terrorist for life. All because I protested. You think that the people who got arrested for protesting at the federal level are labeled terrorists? They are, in word, but in the courts, they got a misdemeanor. They got fined and released. I didn't. I got indefinitely incarcerated and was miraculously released by a mistake on their part. I wasn't supposed to be let go. I was a political prisoner. Not because I was a Democrat. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not partisan. I'm anti-partisan. I'm anti-party. The Constitution itself declares that there shall be no party. It is supposed to be individual representation. It does not say party representation. And yet alt-right conservatives will twist this to their favor and say, oh, I'm sorry, that's not a crime because it's not listed in the Constitution. That's what they said about the kidnapping by my first wife of our children. It's not listed as a crime, and besides, we made a law about custodial interference. You had to get custody of your newborn babies, just like a prenuptial agreement before you get married, to protect yourself from an evil spouse. Do you see the trap they're doing? They're purposely trying to cause contention in the home before contention emerges in the home. They don't care about families. They care only about them and their families. The LDS Church used to have an adoption agency. Isn't that convenient? With Utah on the rise for being sexually active because they teach abstinence rather than properly teaching kids about sex and sexual behavior. Again, sex is a 4-letter word. And so as a result, Mormons were promoting the separation of families to put them in good Mormon households. But then the gays emerged. The gay agenda to destroy family values. And the church immediately stopped it, recognizing that the nation was turning towards supporting gay rights. Heaven forbid. Because if gays want to adopt a baby, the church wants nothing to do with it. Why do you think they got out of the Boy Scouts? See, at first, it was the pubescent Boy Scouts, the higher level of Boy Scouts, where boys are turning gay. They canceled that. And then this year, they finally announced, we're getting out of Boy Scouts altogether. Guess why? Because women, girls, wanted to become Boy Scouts. They hate women. They hate gays. They hate the poor. They hate minorities or those of a different color. Because technically, if you go to a different country, they're not really minority. And then there are some counties that are majority minority. So they're actually the majority and whites are the minority. But alt-right conservatives must establish fear. They must change the laws. They must alter definitions. And so, are we allowed to have, possess, and own guns? We always have. The Fourth Amendment. We have the right to possess things. The government needs a warrant in order to seize and search possessions, guns. That's what it's referring to. Ownership is possession. And yet the government still pushed to have it under the Second Amendment, which is about the militia owning guns. It's not citizens in the Second Amendment, it's militia. But we did away with the militia, so now we can twist the definition and make it citizens. We already had rights. Women, blacks, already had rights under the Constitution. But because the alt-right conservative white people who were old wanted to have slaves, wanted to suppress women and keep them ignorant, keep them in the kitchen and pregnant, they were all treated as subhuman. Native American Indians, subhuman, so that the businesses can expand westward and make profit off of destroying the land, causing the Dust Bowl, causing Tornado Alley. And then we invent the nuclear bomb. Guess what we've been doing to the desert, which the previous inhabitants did to that land? It became a nuclear test site, and those in southern Utah got cancer. And so, yeah, the church is all part of this. The church aided and abetted in the kidnapping of my kids. They aided and abetted my first wife, Stephanie, so that she can have a separate home from living with her father and his new wife. They paid for her residence. They paid for everything. They paid for her lawyer so that she can secretly get a divorce against me up in Canada. They orchestrated the whole thing, and the church was in on it. Lester, the child molester Nielsen, the bishop at that time, aided and abetted, giving Stephanie a blessing, giving her confidence and support to leave me. I had done nothing wrong. I was working full-time. Full-time job. Do you know how rare that is? It was minimum wage, but it was getting to the Christmas season. I had been working overtime. I still got to stay at the job. But Lester, the child molester, and I call him the child molester because he liked to brag about how he exposed himself to little kids. He thought it was funny. After that incident, he was elevated in church status. He was put into the stake presidency. That's what they do in Utah. If you do something wrong, if you do something criminal, if you do something immoral, they elevate you in status. It's a joke in Utah, but it's not really a joke, because it's true. A singles ward bishop. I can't remember his name, so unfortunately I can't expose him. We were cleaning the church building, and we were talking, and I started talking about a gospel topic, and he immediately replied, "I'm not an intellectual like you. I've never read the Book of Mormon." Wow, a bishop has never read the Book of Mormon. And then accused me, because that's what alt-right conservatives do. They take something that's not really an accusation and make it an accusation. It's supposed to be a good thing to be smart. But he accused me of being smart because he hadn't read the Book of Mormon himself. He's passing off blame to justify his position of being ignorant. And as a result, guess what happened in his ward? Yeah, the sacrament was altered. He was doing all sorts of things in violation of the Doctrine and Covenants. The members, the single members, were complaining, and they were all silenced. They went to the stake president, and he refused to do anything about it. That's alt-right conservatism. And so, I won't go over further details of the incident that happened to me and the torture that they put me through, the abuse of my rights, without a trial, without due process. So now I'm out, and I'm still labeled a terrorist. I'm still labeled mentally ill. I move out here to West Valley. This apartment, I was told, was supposed to be the next stage before entering society, and that we were the ones who had been found that we could actually enter society one day. But there was no rush, no hurry. We could stay here as long as we want. The landlord told me directly, "You're here now. Danville Development is an equal housing renter." Looks like Janice has made some baked goods for us today. I don't know the holiday, so that's nice of her. But unless somebody else is going around taking them, we don't have that problem here. Everybody's good. Yeah, I no longer had to be on medication. I no longer had to be on file with North Valley Behavioral Health. That changed their name from North Valley Mental Health. Again, that's the alt-right conservative thinking. That's psychiatry for you. Remember, psychiatrists were used in Auschwitz. I can't pronounce the German properly. I didn't get to take German in high school. My mom wouldn't let me transfer to Corona High to take the German. I was then forced to take French, which is not bad. I like French because I got to memorize the Grey Poupon commercial. Pardonnez-moi, est-ce que vous avez du Grey Poupon? Mais bien sûr. Simple, easy, quick. But yeah, she told me that I was protected by my rights, discrimination rights. They can't kick me out if I'm not on record with North Valley Behavioral, who changed from mental, because now behavioral problems are a mental illness. Protesters are a mental illness. That's how alt-right conservatives think. Remember the news? When a white guy does a terrorist act, he's mentally ill. When a black guy does a terrorist act, he's a terrorist. You see the difference that alt-right conservative thinking do? I'm a white guy, as you can plainly see. And so I was labeled as mentally ill and a terrorist. Oh my goodness, how did they do that? They can't do both, can they? Of course they can. When you deny people rights, you deny people to protest, you arrest them for protesting, what are we left to do? We don't want to die. We have no choice but to fight for freedom. But they won't let us. If we riot, the National Guard, the whole police force, pounds us to the ground, and we go to prison for the rest of our life. That's suppression. That's oppression. That's forced servitude. That's silenced. And Mormons, you know what that means. You know what Lucifer and his plan of salvation was. You know it. Shame on each and every one of you for adopting his plan here in the state of Utah. Shame on you. You do not take away the agency of others. You do not try to control other people's behavior. You know this. What's wrong with you? But that's how I got out. When my med prescriber and my therapist both quit at the same time. And the new people I wouldn't see for a month or two. I saw that as my escape, and I took it. And I've been off for 2 years. I've been fine. No more kidney infections trying to kill me. Murder is technically the word. The state of Utah not only declared me a terrorist, declared me mentally ill, but they tried to murder me. not just silence me. The doctor thought it was a regular kidney infection, so he gave me the antibodies for a regular kidney infection. A couple of days later, the test results came back, and the nurse was panicked. You got the wrong antibodies. You could be in trouble. Come get the new ones we've got for you. Well, I was fine by then. I had 104 fever. Panicked my wife. Well, fiance at the time. But yeah, after a couple of days of fever, I was back to normal. And it was tender for a couple of weeks, but I haven't had problems since because I'm off. I'm not going to allow people to murder me. I'm not suicidal, but I am patriotic. I will defend this nation against enemies, foreign and domestic. Domestic means government enemies. It means citizen enemies. It means federal government enemies. It means state government enemies. It means city enemies. That's why I protest. That's why I'm exposing everybody. And so getting off, this year we ended up with a new case management from North Valley Behavioral. I complained to the new landlord. Danville fired our landlord and put in a family member as the new landlord. She knows nothing about how to do the job. She doesn't have to, because I complained to her about things that were happening here that violated my rights as a tenant. She refused to do anything about it and passed it on to the new case manager. Coincidental timing, putting the two different positions, new people in. So the new case manager, Beth, came to visit me, all in the guise of, oh, I got your email. Really? I didn't send you an email. Yeah, Stephanie sent it to me. Stephanie Jones is our landlord now. See, I'm exposing names. I'm denied redressing grievances, so I'm protesting by naming names. And Beth sat down with me and said, you don't have rights. Those people have rights. That was a summary of it. And so my rights don't matter. She refused to answer, but I knew my answer. And she said, you're not on file with North Valley. You have to be on file in order to stay here. So you're kicking me onto the streets. Oh, no, we would never do that. That's the alt-right conservative thinking. They don't punish people, they just force compliance. And if I choose to not comply, then it's not them to blame when they kick me to the streets. But Beth can't do it because she's not the landlord. So guess what else is now going on? Beth made sure to apply for further HUD support. Housing and Urban Development. So now that this place is no longer a equal housing renter, retroactively changed it so that they can cover up the past and blame me in the future for not being a client of North Valley Behavioral. They're trying to force my compliance, but Beth cannot kick me out. The landlord has to do it. Guess what the landlord's doing? She's late. It's now Thursday. Last week, I was notified by email, because she doesn't dare confront me, that it's my annual recertification. I moved in February, but because I got married in October, the recertification was performed over again for the marital status. And even though I'm divorced now, again, the annual recertification still happens in this October time period. And guess what question she also threw in on her email notifying me that she needed my bank statements, and I told her I already gave you the two, get the others from the previous landlord. I was giving them to her. I don't have access to her email. I don't have them. Way to go, Emily. You screwed over your employer that fired you. Kudos. And then I had to resend September's bank statements to her because for some reason she couldn't find them in the email that I sent her and that she said thank you for in her reply. That's how I'm able to know that this new landlord, Stephanie, is incompetent. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's just a member of the family. And as far as I can tell, she's newly divorced. And that's why the family brought her in, to help her in her time of crisis. I don't know Stephanie. I don't know the cause of the divorce, if she was married and divorced. But the evidence all leads to it. Because Utah girls, they get married straight out of high school. Or they don't get married for a long time. And so they don't get higher education. So they ain't very bright. So when they get divorced, they're now in trouble because they don't have education to back them up in society. And the alt-right conservative government doesn't like women. They don't like poor. So if the husband isn't paying alimony, or enough alimony, to provide for a woman's lifestyle of ease and comfort for the rest of her life, she has to get a job. And what good is she? No education. She can work at McDonald's. And we all know the quality of wages at McDonald's. They don't hire full-time at the low levels. They specifically hire part-time because it's more cost efficient and they get more profit from it. But she got the family business. But she threw in to her email, who is your pharmacist? And how much do you pay a month for the pharmaceuticals, medications, drugs that tried to murder me? I was never asked that question by Emily. So I knew something was up. Because I'm covered by Medicaid and Medicare. They comp the price of my meds. back when I had them. At the most, I think I was paying $9 a month. I think it may have been actually 6 months. My second wife was $9. So $6 a month for the one shot that I was getting. And the payee that I was forced to have had been paying it. So it's like no big deal. It's not a question to ask. It's insignificant. So why is my new landlord, for my recertification to qualify to live in these apartments, asking me about who my pharmaceutical company is? She didn't ask who my doctor was. Notice that. And she was supposed to contact me this week to tell me when she was going to meet with me and give me advance notice. It's now Thursday. I mean, is she going to give me advance notice for tomorrow? She's not doing her job right. But Beth made sure to make sure that this place could kick me out now. So my life is in jeopardy. That's the alt-right conservative mindset. So now let's go to my local ward in the LDS church, because I had been a Mormon, born and raised, for 48 years. Why am I all of a sudden speaking out against the church? Travis, why are you an antichrist? Why are you apostate? What sin did you commit? Why did you stop studying your scriptures? That's what Mormons think. They don't actually conceive of the possibility that the church that they go to, pay money to make the church a profit, is actually bad and not from God. That's inconceivable to them. And thus, in their alt-right conservative thinking, anybody who says anything bad about the church, even if it's a joke, you know, like the Book of Mormon, the musical, South Park, anybody who would dare speak negatively about the church, we demand an apology. We demand you learn about Jesus Christ from the Book of Mormon. Mormons are horrible people because they are brainwashed into the alt-right conservative mindset. Mormons get very defensive, very offended when people point out, hey, shouldn't tithing go for the poor? Why is the church only giving less than 1% to the poor in the whole world, compared with the multi-billions that they're making every year? Why are bishops talking about sexual behavior to children? A single man alone in a room with a child talking about sexual behavior. The church does not want things recorded. You are not to record in the chapels, in the conference centers, in the meeting rooms. You're not supposed to have witnesses. The church has completely changed from Joseph Smith's day. Joseph Smith specifically said, 2 by 2, you need witnesses. There's the law of witnesses that the church utilizes. By the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word shall be established. They don't even put it into practice when it comes to church leadership. Bishops are alone with a child. No witnesses, no recordings are allowed. The church finally changed that because of the movement to protect LDS children. but only girls are protected. Boys are not protected. Well, I think boys are also protected. Children are protected, and women are protected, but not men. That's how evil it's gotten in the church. There are lawsuits pending against the church, unless they've all been silenced with a non-disclosure arbitration agreement. People are getting raped. People are getting violently abused. People are being scammed financially by church leaders. And in this ward, I was a ward missionary. So I got to go and visit my neighbors. So that was cool. I got to talk and meet with them. Mostly it was find out who's left, because we have all these records for people that aren't coming to church. 300 people on record, but not coming. Bishop Hammond chased them all out because he kept denying them assistance. This apartment building that I'm in is for the mentally ill. There's another one just down the road next to Maverick, also mentally ill. He did not provide us with any assistance. He refused. He doesn't care about the poor. He doesn't care about the mentally ill. He protects the church over taking care of his flock. If you're familiar with church courts, that's how the High Council is divided. One group supposedly defends the defendant, and the other defends the church. So it's you against the church. Automatically there's a contention there. But when you have people on the High Council who are chosen to defend you, but they have the alt-right conservative mindset, guess what? They're not protecting you. They're not going to defend you. And you can't bring in evidence. It's all feelings. Nothing more than feelings. Trying to forget my... And John Dillon knows about this. He is agreeing to his non-disclosure agreement, but he knows. And there are other people who have exposed it. You can find them on YouTube also. Word's getting out. Church is being exposed, and people are exiting from the church. But the Mormons who stay are alt-right conservative, and they refuse to leave despite the evidence because it's fake news. And that's where we have our problem. Is I had still supported the church. I'd been aware of the problems. I now knew about the problems of the specific bishop, but I localized it to the bishop as the problem, not the church. I didn't do the math. I didn't find the report by President or Elder Oaks in the Deseret News saying how much the church gives annually in welfare. I didn't do the church statistics to find out how many members were actually in the church. 3 million, by the way, not 5 million as others have suspected. I didn't do my research. I was focused on Egyptian and Paleo-Hebrew. And so, sitting in Sunday school, Bill Blunt, my neighbor, and former bishop, or bishop's counsel. No, I think he was a bishop. Before my time, though. He and his wife would invite us over for dinner here in this apartment, and a few of us who were Mormon. And so I had gotten a good relationship with him, and you know, good rapport. And so we were talking in Sunday school, before Sunday school started, and we were going to be having the lesson about the martyrdom of Joseph Smith, because last year was the Doctrine and Covenants. And he had been studying for that lesson. He said, "What do you know about Joseph's murder?" And so I told him, well, my third great grandfather, John Solomon Fulmer, the one who spent the night with Joseph Smith, gave Joseph Smith his gun before he was sent on a special mission by Joseph Smith to go get the militia to protect Joseph Smith. And then Bill told me, well, I'd been doing some studying, and Joseph Smith had 2 guns. And one gun he used at the top of the stairs to shoot the mob coming up the stairs. 2 guns? My family only passed down the information that there was 1 gun. So you're saying there were more guns. And so that got me wanting to investigate what actually happened. What had my third great grandfather exposed by passing down the information that he gave Joseph Smith a gun? Because the church previously, through all growing up, said that Joseph Smith was unarmed. So that was a shocker to learn that the church had been saying that the whole time, all through my growing up years. Elder Oaks, a judge and lawyer, and I have, if you go to my conference review, I talk about President Oaks as being a judge and lawyer, and him clearly indicating that he was in support of Kavanaugh, the sexual predator. And so I wanted to do the research. So I put the Egyptian and Paleo-Hebrew on hold and focused on research about the murder of Joseph Smith. And I got into it and realized, hey, wait a minute, there's too many things that I need to find out that happened prior to and leading up to this event. And so I decided I need to do the research from the beginning. And that's how I uncovered the Illuminati threat. You know, what everybody thought was a conspiracy theory until, wait, it's happening this year. Oh my God, it's actually happening. Huh, go figure. Joseph Smith knew about this Illuminati threat and was involved in smuggling William Morgan out of the country. I learned about the New Israelites, the church that Joseph Smith Sr. and William Cowdery, the father of Oliver Cowdery, went to in Vermont. I learned about Freemasonry. I now connected the Book of Mormon. I found books from the time period of Joseph Smith that were plagiarized in the Book of Mormon. It wasn't just the 1769 King James Version of the Bible. There were lots. The Quran at that time was just published. That was plagiarized. Jewish mystic literature was plagiarized in the Book of Mormon. That's what it mostly was about, was encoding Freemasonry symbolism in the Book of Mormon to warn of the Illuminati threat, the Gadianton robbers. You know this, Mormons. Joseph never intended to start a church, but he couldn't just come out and expose the Illuminati threat, because they would want to silence him too. So how do you get the word out of the threat without having your life jeopardized? You start a religion. And that's why there's this controversy over the first vision accounts. What actually happened during the first vision, and when did Joseph Smith actually claim to have had it? That's how it fits in the puzzle. But if you don't study all this other stuff, and you just isolate the first vision account alone, and you find out, hey, they're different accounts and they're different things, and I'm out of here, you're missing the big picture. It was not intended to be a religion. The religion was the cover story for the warning to the United States. And is it Mormon chapter 8 that is Moroni speaking to us in the United States? I know you. I've seen your doings. I am warning you. Do not let the Gadianton robbers in your government. Don't let the king men put a king over your government. Samuel the Lamanite. There will be signs in the heavens before the coming of Christ. And it's also indicated by the birth and signs just before his coming to America with his death. So that's actually quite clever, Joseph, or Smith family actually. Joseph was the spokesperson. Hiram was the brains of the brothers, because he was the one that was educated. He was the one that they paid to go to college. And Smith Sr., his farm was a copper farm. They had a coppersmith shop there on the farm. How do you think they prepared books for printing? On copper plates that were like a book form. So yeah, the whole story is a fraud, but that's not the whole piece of the puzzle, people. The Book of Mormon was written to warn the United States of this very year, about signs that occurred also last year. Who's been the Mormon who's been warning the church about the signs in the heavens occurring? President Monson? Nope. President Nelson? Nope. You know, 2 conferences have gone by since all the signs have happened. Sun, moon, stars, and Revelation chapter 12. All those signs have occurred. Not a single word from any prophet. I've been telling you guys. I've been warning you guys. I learned I'm the fulfillment of the Book of Mormon prophecy of Joseph Smith. I am the symbol represented as Samuel the Lamanite for the latter days. The birth sign of the Christ was on the 23rd of September 2017. I'm still wearing the shirt because I haven't gotten ready for today. Christians all picked up on it and had been doing videos on it. I wasn't aware of it. I didn't realize that Revelations was a stellar time dating. So once I found these videos on this particular date, then I went, hey, wait a minute, there's also a sign of the dragon. And I used my Stellarium computer program to go forward in time to find that date. But this was after I knew about the solar eclipse, and I knew from my education from the university in Canada that a solar eclipse meant death or collapse of a kingdom. Death of a king, government leader, or collapse of a kingdom. And when I learned that it was over the whole United States, I knew. That's how the ancients interpreted things. That's how they wrote their scriptures. You know, the rising of the sun, birth of God. Noon, God becomes king. Evening, God dies and is buried and then resurrects the next morning and ascends to heaven. That's how the ancients did it. That's how scriptures were written. That's how prophecies were made. But to actually see that the prophecies connected to our day and time, our life. Latter-day Saints took on a whole new meaning for me. So what's going on, Mormons? Why are you choosing Lucifer's plan of salvation at the time of the last days? You know the prophecy of Joseph Smith. The Constitution of the United States would hang by a thread by the Illuminati, the Gadianton robbers. You know all this information. You knew that the elders of Israel were supposed to be the ones to form an army to go up against the king of the United States, to take back our country, to restore the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. So thanks, Bill. You opened up a whole new world to me. But it also coincided because I put out a video on YouTube about the Book of Mormon being the official doctrine of the church. We're studying the Old Testament this year. So I did it was last year. I'd have to go check. But that video caused it was this year. So last year, that was when things were getting tough in the marriage. And so I was having problems trying to get help from the Bishop Hammond, and he refused to help. He had been a supporter when she had problems previously. I thought he was a friend, and then he betrayed me when I needed him most. When I recognized that this was the end of my marriage, I need help from the members of the ward, the sisters in the ward. She needs distractions in her mind to take her mind off of things so that she can calm down, relax, breathe. And silence was all I got. And then we didn't get our Thanksgiving meal that the ward gives out to the poor in the ward every year. And that hurt. The bishop was turning on me, and I didn't know why. Because in the beginning, when I was doing my research, I was pointing out factual information. Hey, this is going on here, and this is going on here. And so when I came out with that video on the Book of Mormon is the official doctrine of the LDS Church. Because the church is not promoting the Book of Mormon anymore. They're promoting the living prophet. Book of Mormon is insignificant. The words of Jesus, insignificant. The living prophet over all else. That's Mormon doctrine now. And so Bishop Hammond threatened me in an email. He wanted to talk with me. And I said, I'm going through a divorce. This is not the time for a talk. If you want to release me from a calling, just do it. I can't get into a discussion right now. And if it has to do with the Sunday school class gasping in shock because I would dare point out that there's a Book of Mormon passage that supports the Old Testament subject that we were talking about in class that day, you know, I have no time for that. Sure enough, it had something to do with that. But he cornered me anyway when I refused to speak with him. He and I alone. So it's a he said. No recordings. So it's his word against my word. He has been going around saying, I never said those things. Travis is mentally ill. We need to figure out a way to put him in the hospital and get him on medication again. I say, he said, I don't want you posting that the Book of Mormon is the official doctrine of the church. Direct quote. And I talked to him about Abinadi and King Noah. Mormons, you know what I'm talking about. Abinadi was accused of being a terrorist towards King Noah and mentally ill, which they call mad in the text. That's exactly what was done to me by the state of Utah. I knew about that story firsthand. I'm a personal witness. And here it was happening again with Bishop Hammond. He was trying to silence me. And I therefore refused to be silenced, and so I understood his veiled threat that I cannot come to church anymore. The stake president was notified. He was involved in the email conversation, and when he finally decided to meet with me, he claimed ignorance. I don't remember the email. I didn't get any emails. He thinks he's playing me for a chump, that I'm some kind of mentally ill person in a mentally ill apartment. That's the surface of it. But everybody underestimates me. They think they're underestimating my intelligence. Because when I first got out, the therapist at North Valley Behavioral, which was mental at that time, was quitting to go to another job. And she declared me Normal. You don't have a mental illness. You're fine. You don't need therapy anymore. So I went without therapy for a year or 6 months. I don't know how long. And until I move here. And Madison, the new case worker over this place, when she transferred in, she said, "Oh, you don't have one? Well, we'll make sure you get one." And so I was put back on. That was before I learned from my landlord that I didn't need to have one. But the thing I should have done was made myself my own payee. I doubt they would have allowed me to do that, because Social Security requires a signed approval from my psychiatrist, the med doctor lady, which I think they have to do it through a council there at the North Valley. So it's not just the doctor's request. And because I left before getting that, I'm forced to have a payee. And they've been giving me grief as of late with the new person they hired. It started with a previous guy who tried to ruin my benefits as he quit in frustration and anger with the company. He was punishing me for it. And so, yeah, stake president did nothing. He extended Bishop Hammond for 6 months. President Lee Hall. I'm naming names, remember? This is all coming out. You are denying me a redress of grievances. You are denying me protests, trying to punish me for protesting. So I'm naming names. Finally, after 6 months, just last month I guess, Brother Cummins was put in as bishop. So it's a convenient timing with President Nelson doing away with the high priest group, doing away with high priests, so that elders, and me among them, can never be ordained to the office of high priest. In the temple, we're made high priests, but that's where it stays according to Mormon thinking. That's why women have the priesthood still after Joseph Smith gave it to the Relief Society in 1842. But yeah, it stays in the temple. Once women leave the temple, they no longer have their high priestesses positions. They're mothers. That's good enough. That's why the church won't give women leadership positions outside of Relief Society. Romans 16, people. Look it up from the Greek, because you're not going to get it from the King James Version, which is the only version the church will use because it covers up the truth. The church doesn't want you learning the original language that the Bible was translated from. And so Bishop Cummins, as the high priest group leader, was put into the bishopric. And you're maybe asking, well, what about the Elders Quorum president? The Elders Quorum president was President Davidson. He was also included in the email correspondences between me and the bishop. He did nothing. He remained silent. He knows about the problem and did nothing. He has never since tried to come to me to resolve things. He now claims innocence, as they all do. That's how my parents did it. They were involved in the kidnapping of my kids. You know, I've got the same story about what they did. But I'm already in an hour and 20 minutes, so I need to try to wrap this up as quick as possible. But the reason why I'm making this video today is because I got word that Bishop Cummins has also been going around telling people that Bishop Hammond had been going around telling people that I'm twisting people's words around. Again, Bishop Hammond believes he never said that the Book of Mormon is not the official doctrine of the church. We both know better, don't we, Bishop? But he will never come out and confess. Because if he confesses, he gets exposed as being in the wrong. And people don't want to do that when they're in positions of power and authority. You can never admit weakness. You can never confess to wrongdoing. And so Bishop Cummins is telling people that I twist things around, probably because I'm mentally ill, he thinks. He's alt-right conservative too. I've been his home teacher. I only got to go once because of the problems in the second marriage. It made it difficult for me to go alone. I know his family. I'm aware still, I still remember Grace's two significant talks. The first one, she talked about being an idol worshiper, and she doesn't know. They don't teach people that in the church, so I understood. But her second one, which was later, I recognized growth in her. And she's over 18, so I can talk about her. She's not a child anymore. I won't talk about the others who are still children. And the warning that I got from one of them. So I'm concerned about Grace, because she talked about testimony. She didn't really, it wasn't about testimony, but she gave a testimony, a real testimony, not the fake ones you hear every first Sunday of the month on Fast and Testimony meeting. And I made sure to tell Brother Cummins at the time, you know, you guys have done a good job parenting your kids. Grace gave an excellent talk. Well done to him for being a good parent. And then he, of course, tried to laugh it off and brush it off. Oh, it's not us, it's just the kids. See, I know these people. I was their neighborhood watch president. I cared for these people in this ward, in these boundaries. I listened to them. The ones who are Mormon, the ones who are not Mormon. I know their suffering. I know their needs. And in my time of need, there's nobody at my side. They're at the side of the leaders who abused me, who chased me out. So this ended up being far longer than I anticipated. So sorry about that. That means that I will have trouble getting to the Christian second coming and how it relates to the Jewish last days Messiah, how it relates to the Mormon concept of the second coming and the one mighty and strong, and other symbolisms, and the Egyptians, who are the source origin religion, who have the whole explanation, of which these branch-offs have only a part of. So yeah, because this is an hour and a half, so it's going to take a long time to upload. So, and it's 6:30 right now, so oh well. But yeah, what's wrong with you Mormons? Wake up. Do not follow Lucifer. Do not continue as an alt-right conservative. Get out of the church. They do not care about you. They are not led by God, so it's okay. You will not be punished for leaving. You may be punished by the church, who tries to control you and keep you in. They may get the government to force you in. But God will not punish you. Resist. This is the last days. We must survive so that we can have a millennium of peace, because the United States is going to be destroyed. Don't go with them to destruction. I'm trying to save you. I'm trying to protect you. I'm warning you. I've wanted to give up too many times, but I keep coming back, hoping and praying someone will listen, someone will wake up. I'll get more into that when I get to the other videos.